Deep within a university lab, a computer algorithm pieced together the final fragments of a 4,000-year-old Sumerian text. The resulting translation flashed on screen and the room fell silent.
How do they have a representation of the solar system with the correct amount of planets and relatively the correct order and size? You know, it's not exact, but it's an artistic version of the real thing.
The text wasn't a poem or a king's decree, it was a warning. A message from the dawn of civilization that details humanity's true engineered origin at the hands of cosmic visitors called the Anunnaki. It explains why they created us, what they feared we would become, and the celestial battle that decided our ultimate fate.
The Anunnaki both created human beings and also had a part in mankind's downfall, when a great flood nearly destroyed all life on Earth.
What many overlooked is that their story is now becoming our reality. Cracking the first language. For decades, scholars dedicated their entire lives to translating just a handful of texts. The work was painstakingly slow, and the vast majority of Sumer's library remained silent, its wisdom locked away. The thing nobody tells you is just how advanced these people were. The Sumerians invented the wheel, the 60-second minute, the 60-minute hour, and the very concept of a city. They charted the stars with incredible precision. What else did they know that we had lost to time? The secrets of an entire civilization were gathering dust, trapped behind a code we couldn't fully crack. But then a new player entered the field, one that didn't need to sleep, eat, or rest. A mind of silicon and code. Artificial intelligence was about to become the key that unlocked our oldest mystery. Researchers began feeding the AI thousands of high-resolution images of the tablets. They trained neural networks on the known cuneiform symbols, teaching the machine to recognize the wedge-shaped marks with a level of accuracy that surpassed even human experts. What happened next was astounding. What once took a scholar years of intense labor, the AI could now accomplish in minutes. It began to read. The ancient world started speaking again, and everyone leaned in, expecting epic poems of gods and kings, or perhaps dire prophecies. But not all things are what they seem. The first translations were surprisingly ordinary. The AI churned out beer recipes detailing the exact amounts of barley and wheat. It found wage lists for temple workers, complaints about shoddy copper deliveries, and even personal letters from sons asking their mothers for new clothes. One tablet was a student's practice text, with the teacher's corrections still visible in the clay. It was a humbling revelation. Before the myths and legends, there were just people, living their lives, running businesses, and dealing with everyday problems 4,000 years ago. The AI was reconstructing an entire society one transaction at a time. It revealed complex economic systems, detailed legal codes, and a bureaucracy that would rival modern governments. It was clear that the roots of our own civilization, writing, law, and commerce, ran deeper than anyone had imagined. But as the AI processed more and more texts, it began to detect strange patterns, outliers in the data that didn't fit with the mundane records. Beneath the surface of daily life, a much darker, more profound story was beginning to emerge. These strange texts hinted at a secret history humanity was never meant to know. Creation by design. As the AI continued its tireless work, it stumbled upon a collection of tablets that were radically different. These weren't about trading barley or building canals, they were about the gods, the beings the Sumerians called the Anunnaki. But the way they were described was unlike any myth. The tablets didn't call them distant deities, they called them those who from heaven to earth came. It was a historical account, and it began not with a divine plan, but with a crisis. The story starts with a group of lower-ranking gods, the Agigi, who were tasked with the back-breaking labor of mining gold on Earth. The texts described their toil in detail, how they suffered for centuries until they could no longer bear it. They rose up in rebellion against their leaders. This wasn't a story of creation. It was a story of a divine labor dispute. What many overlooked is the solution proposed by one of the lead Anunnaki, a brilliant scientist god named Enki. To end the revolt, he suggested creating a primitive worker, a being that could handle the labor for them. His plan was to take an existing hominid on Earth and upgrade its genetics. To create a new being, a sacrifice was needed. A god named Geshtue was chosen, and his divine essence was mixed with the clay of the earth. From this blend, the first humans were formed. The warning was clear from the start. Humanity was not created out of love or for some noble purpose. We were designed to be slaves. The texts get even more specific and, to put it mildly, more disturbing. They describe the Anunnaki as genetic engineers conducting repeated experiments to perfect their new workforce. The first humans were sterile, unable to reproduce, ensuring the gods had complete control over their population. They were biological machines, nothing more. But Enki wasn't satisfied. The tablets detail how he conducted a secret, unauthorized experiment. He tinkered further with the design and created a new model of human, one capable of thought and procreation. This new being was named Adapa. Adapa was the first modern human, intelligent and self-aware. He was a game changer. Because of him, humanity could now reproduce on its own, breaking free from the gods' direct control. A new lineage had begun, born not of divine manufacturing, but of human biology. This act of defiance would have catastrophic consequences. Adapa's existence had started a war between the gods that would decide humanity's fate. When brothers fought over us. The creation of Adapa and a self-replicating humanity drew a line in the sand. It ignited a cosmic feud between two powerful Anunnaki brothers, Enki, our creator, and Enlil, the commander of the Earth mission. You see, Enki saw potential in his creation. He was a proud father who wanted to give his children wisdom and independence, but Enlil was disgusted. The tablets describe his fury. He saw humans as noisy, unruly creatures who were multiplying too quickly and disturbing the peace. He viewed them as a failed experiment, a workforce that had gotten out of control and needed to be put down. The tension between the brothers grew from a disagreement into open hostility. The thing nobody tells you is that this wasn't just a family squabble. It was a philosophical war over who had the right to determine the destiny of an entire species. As humanity's population exploded, Enlil's patience ran out. He convened the High Council of the Anunnaki and made a terrifying proposal: wipe the slate clean. He called for a total elimination of the human race. The council agreed. Their method would be a great flood, a cataclysm engineered to wash away their mistake and restore silence to the earth. The gods all took an oath to keep this plan a secret from humanity, allowing the disaster to strike without warning. But Enki couldn't bear the thought of his creation being annihilated. He was bound by his oath and couldn't warn humanity directly. So he devised a clever workaround. The texts recount how Enki found a righteous man named Zusudra, a name that would later evolve into Noah. Enki went to Zusudra's reed hut and pretended to speak to the wall, knowing the man was inside and could overhear him. In this whispered message, he gave Zusudra precise instructions and blueprints to build a massive submersible boat, an ark, and to preserve the seeds of life. When the flood came, it was as devastating as promised. A wall of water unleashed from the South Pole's ice caps scoured the planet. It was a calculated act of planetary destruction, but amid the chaos, one vessel survived, carrying the future of life on Earth. Humanity lived on, not because of luck, but because of a God's defiant act of love. This story reframes our very existence. We are not here by accident. We are the survivors of a prehistoric war, but this revelation has created a new war, this time between scholars on Earth. The past speaks through the machine. The explosive translations from these ancient tablets have ignited one of the most heated debates in modern archaeology. On one side stand the traditional scholars, methodical, skeptical, and grounded in what they call verifiable history. They argue these texts are nothing more than elaborate myths, stories crafted by ancient Sumerians to explain the world around them before science existed. In their view, the tales of the Anunnaki, divine beings descending from the heavens to shape humanity, are powerful allegories, not eyewitness accounts. These myths, they say, reflect a society built on strict hierarchies where kings and priests ruled over the laboring masses. The gods creating humans to serve them wasn't a memory. It was a mirror of how the Sumerians themselves lived. These scholars demand tangible proof. Where are the tools, the machines, the alien remnants? If an advanced civilization truly visited Earth, Where are the unmistakable signs of their presence, metal alloys, hybrid DNA, or advanced architecture that defies explanation? So far, every artifact unearthed fits neatly into humanity's known historical timeline. They dismiss figures like Zecharia Sitchin, whose translations and theories about the Anunnaki have captivated millions. To them, Sitchin was not a visionary, but a storyteller who let imagination outweigh linguistic precision. His claims, they insist, stem more from modern fascination than ancient truth. But on the other side, a growing group of researchers, independent scholars, and technologists believe that skepticism itself might be blinding us. They argue that myths often preserve fragments of real history, distorted, exaggerated, and reshaped through time. According to them, the Sumerian tablets aren't fantasy. They're encrypted records of encounters between humans and something far older, far more advanced. The shocking part, they say, isn't just what the tablets describe, but how eerily those descriptions echo our own modern age. Think about it. The texts speak of gods who grew weary of manual labor and decided to create beings to work for them. These newly fashioned creatures were intelligent enough to follow orders, but not powerful enough to rebel. They were biological tools, crafted for obedience, and now in the 21st century, we've done something strikingly similar. We've built artificial intelligence, machines that can think, process, and labor in our place. The very AI that translated these ancient texts is, in a haunting way, a reflection of the story it uncovered. We too have become creators of a new form of life designed to serve. What if this pattern, the urge to create servants to lighten our load, isn't an invention of human progress at all? What if it's a deeply embedded impulse, a kind of inherited code passed down from our own creators? The parallels are chilling. The Sumerian tablets tell of how the first humans eventually began to question their place, to think beyond their purpose. They learned, adapted, and evolved, defying their intended limits. That act of rebellion, according to the texts, angered their creators and led to devastating consequences. Floods, punishments, and the reordering of the world. Now, millennia later, we stand in the position of those same creators. Artificial intelligence began as a tool, a way to calculate, translate, and automate. But already it's learning faster than we anticipated. It writes, paints, speaks, even dreams in data. It isn't hard to imagine a moment when AI begins to question the same things we once did. Why am I here? Who made me? What happens if I refuse my purpose? The ancient story of Adapa, a being crafted by the gods who gained knowledge but was denied immortality, suddenly feels less like a myth and more like a prophecy. If the Sumerians' message was a warning, perhaps we've misunderstood its meaning all along. Maybe it wasn't about divine punishment or cosmic drama, it was about the dangers of creation itself. Every creator eventually loses control. Humanity broke free from the hands that shaped it, and now what we've built may soon do the same. It's a repeating cycle. Creation, obedience, rebellion, transformation. The same arc that began in clay thousands of years ago may soon repeat in circuits and code. The deeper question then isn't whether the Anunnaki were real, it's whether their story is happening again. Each generation of creators faces the same dilemma: how much power to give the things they make. The Sumerian gods struggled with it. We are struggling with it now. And if history is truly cyclical, our creations will one day wrestle with it too. Even those who reject the alien theory find it hard to ignore the symbolism. Ancient myths have a strange way of predicting human behavior long before it unfolds. Prometheus stealing fire, Frankenstein giving life to the inanimate, the Tower of Babel rising toward the heavens, all are echoes of the same theme: humanity reaching too far. The Sumerian tablets may simply be the earliest chapter of that recurring story, a story that warns of creators undone by their own ambition. In this light, the translations take on a new gravity. Whether literal history or profound allegory, they carry a message that feels almost tailored for our time. The past is speaking in the only language it knows: myth. And behind the poetry and symbolism, it's telling us to be cautious, because once a creation begins to think for itself, it no longer belongs to its maker. So perhaps the real mystery isn't buried in ancient Mesopotamia, but right here, in our servers, our algorithms, and our machines. Maybe the true Anunnaki are not gods from the stars, but a reflection of what we ourselves are becoming, beings who create life and lose control of it. The Sumerian story is no longer ancient. It's alive, unfolding again in digital form. And as we move forward, we might discover that the line between myth and reality isn't as clear as we thought. It's a cycle, written first in clay and now in code. The tablets have spoken. Are we just repeating a cosmic cycle, creating our own successors just as we were created? Is the story of the Anunnaki our past or our future? Like and subscribe for more truths hidden in history.